Does helping the poor actually help them out of poverty, or does it just make it more comfortable? And I ask this question as a guy who semi-professionally bums change. I travel around, drift around, and when I'm not driving a semi, I bum change. And what I've observed is most of these so-called poor people, and a lot of them, you will not even know they're there because of the way the cards and everything's set up these days. If it was starvation or bumming change or getting a job, they'd just get a job to avoid starvation. Well, this is my Questions of Poverty series, part two. This is Freedomville. Like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Like, I see these people and they have, like, their rent's really high, like it's $800 a month or some ridiculous amount like that. They're unwilling to adjust to the reality they live in. And being a guy who, I've got my bills down to, now let's say the essential bills are under 100, and then there's $88 for taxes and HOA for two pieces of property outright own, and then I just round up to 300 to put like 120 or 130 something for an emergency fund. Dave Ramsey's right about that. But the concept that someone can live off $300 a month in America basically is mind blowing to people. They're like, there's no fucking way you can do that. And so, you see people who their lifestyle basically holds them back. And a lot of people, the reason isn't, the shame. Like, I find a lot of people, if it wasn't for the fact there's consequences, like local townie style consequence, like a lot of reasons people won't bum change is not the moral aspect. It's just they don't want to deal with the drama of their hometown. And that's one of the beauties of being a nomadic bum. Like, I'm there for maybe a week or two. Like, I might be in the greater area for a month, camping in the hills, maybe bum change a few times. And then I move on. I hit up a few food banks and I move on. I'm there and then I'm not there. And so I don't have to deal with all the fucking drama and, the Tina said to, the neighbor over the fence, oh my God, can you believe blah, blah, blah. It does not affect me. But that type of shame motivated people once upon a time. Like, they're asking for handouts. They failed. It's amazing how much success and failure. I don't even think it's success anymore. We should just say that society is excess. They can't afford an excessive amount of stupid shit. They're failures. And then, yeah, as a woman, let's be real. Women basically make the decision to, instead of going and getting a real job, they just maybe poop out a kid and then get money from a guy, or they get money from the government. And as guys have gotten hip to it, like, oh, I'm disabled. And a lot of the reason the disability type of thing came up was back, I think it was the Reagan era. There was a court case that said, hey, it's unconstitutional to put people in jail for minor things when they can be managed. They found this new wonder drug or something, and it actually had a lot of problems. Big surprise. And so they found that it was cheaper to take these so-called nutcases out of the system and just feed them this new chemical. Well, the problem is that chemical has a lot of side effects. So what you actually have is a lot of people don't want to feel numb 24/7. And when they come off those drugs, those so-called pharmaceuticals, sometimes there's psychotic events that happen. I've actually heard of people having that happen. So you have people that are crazy on the streets now. But what the problem with that was is that the crazy people on the streets was causing problems with crime and then throwing them in jail, cost X amount of money. You're talking, what, 40 to 60,000 or more to incarcerate someone for a year. It's just cheaper to give someone, maybe $10,000 a year and give them a cheap apartment. Or if they've got a family member and they, I got one buddy who he says he lives with his family and pays $300 a month for a room. In reality, he just pays nothing and lives next to his dad's diesel shop. And guess what? He's doing absolutely fine on the system. But coming back to, if he was forced to bum change, do you think he would get a job? And a lot of people, maybe, maybe not. I mean, me in his case, we can live off almost next to nothing. So we'd probably be like, fuck it. Like you do a seasonal job, like, oh, you work the harvest or you do the whatever, like the fish come in or whatever, and you work that long enough to make, and you just chill the rest of the year. That was what people used to do when they lived, so-called poor. But now with, the EBT cards, let's go over some of the benefits. Like, okay, so you're poor and then you manage to get an apartment of some sort. Well, once you got once you're on the system, so it starts out usually with EBT and a cell phone, because you can walk with those things. But after that, then if you got a place that's being subsidized by the government, basically, well, then you don't have to pay the rent. so that if you don't have to worry about rent, you don't have to really worry about having the most expensive car. You could, because a lot of states you can have up to two vehicles on the system. So I've seen guys where they have like a pickup truck and a motorcycle. And the reason for that is they want the motorcycle for long distances. Like, and if you were bumming change as well as being on the system, you use the motorcycle to get to some far off place, and then you hustle, not around your hometown. That way, people don't know you're doing it, because it's the invisible bumming of the system, where basically your EBT comes on a card, your rent is paid by the government, your internet, for instance. You have a free cell phone that has, like, I've heard of these programs having up to 5 gigs and unlimited talk and text, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you have free Wi-Fi at the library and everywhere else, and then because you have a place, you can get free Wi-Fi, government program to pay for that at home. And this even gets into where I say, are you tactically doing this? Where you're at home, you have this. Why don't you take some online computing courses and have the government pay for it? And then basically you'll be at a point where you could basically be out of poverty, like so-called poverty, because I don't really believe most people that are poor in America are poor. And like between the food banks, the EBT, the free housing, the free internet, the free, sometimes even I've heard of free cable. So I mean, like, and you have over the airwave TV in a lot of places too, so you don't even really need the cable. But you have all these programs for heating, free this, free that. Like, if you were getting $1,000 a month just on the low end of it, and you free food, free this, free medical assistance, and free internet, because like, say you lived in a trailer with a bunch of other people in a family member's place, you could basically then go hustle change and buy gold, guns, like basically precious metals, things that can be easily carried. You could fucking store up a goddamn fortune on the system. But on the other hand, if you were tactical about it, you could use the system temporarily to be quote unquote poor to get a better deal on getting your education. And that's where I look at them. Like, if you start out and you're quote unquote poor, but it allows you to save money towards, getting yourself at least a van, to where if you want to go to Job Corps or become a trucker, and then instead of paying like $5,000 to a trucking school, or six, or whatever the absurd amount they're charging these days, you get it for free. And then effectively, that allows you to actually get an edge to move up in society. As where, I hate to say it, we literally just punish the hardworking people. If you're doing it right, they're like, okay, you're doing it right, we can't help you. But that's actually a punishment when they have to pay full price to go do things. But because as a country, we've decided that we don't want to dirty our own hands with poverty. Like, I'm going to tell you, I bet, once again, just like if most people had to beg for change, they just get a job. If you made those people that are quote unquote poor, they got all those benefits, free housing, free internet, free heating, free phone, free everything, even sometimes free petty money for gas or gas cards. Like, I'm amazed by that one right there. That blew my fucking mind when I heard that. If you made those people go in front of a group, a tribunal, a group of elders, like, go in front of the church group and saying, okay, this is what I need the money for, and you had to do that every month, watch how quickly most people would get a job. Because there is a certain social credit score to all this, where people eventually, people will help you. But if they see, this is why I say nomadic bumming is better. You come through a town, maybe you only go through that town, going north and south like twice a year. Maybe you have the big loop or something like that, where you've actually planned out your routes, and you do this run up here, you're figuring out where your stores are for your bumming, your truck stops, your gas stations. And then you run that run this year, and then come back down this other way this year. So maybe people only see you once a year, or you have multiple runs and they only see you once every 2 or 3 years. So you're not actually a fixture that's coming holding a sign or begging for change. Just like with the group of elders at the church or the city council, when you're asking those people for money every month, they're going to start questioning what the fuck you're doing with yourself. And that's where I look at it, and I said, I will tell you that I think helping poverty, helping people to some certain degree, it's one thing to help people a small amount, a little donation. But when they get the cards, they get the bills paid for, and there's really not much difference between the working class on the lower end and the so-called lower class. And I'd argue a lot of so-called poor people, as much as they want to bullshit you, they're driving nice cars. They're not the newest cars, but they're nice. I drive a 1980s van. I regularly have the oldest vehicle in a food bank parking lot. I see people who have vehicles that are only a few years old, maybe even brand new. I saw this one group of chicks. They were dressed in booty shorts, overweight, by the way, overweight white girls. And they had a sports car going to a food bank. So I'm just pointing out who's really actually poor in that situation. The working class that's legitimately paying for what they got, or the quote unquote on the system poor person. I'm poor, my kids, my this, my that. Yeah. So ultimately, I think if you really wanted to help people out of poverty, you'd help them get education, but you'd have requirements of it. And you'd make them have some shame. You'd make them walk in front of a group, a tribunal, and say, okay, well, why are we helping you this month? And you'd watch how quickly, when it became quite known, and you may put up pictures in the local city or county, the whole area. Watch how quickly people would stop being poor. And they're like, you can't shame people. Yes, you fucking can. Like, if you can point a gun via the government at someone's wallet and take their money against their will, like, a lot of people did not vote for these taxes. They did not. And a lot of the reasons I've noped out is I just got sick and tired of people taking from me. Like, I'm not hardly asking anything from society, but I've noticed my life feels a hell of a lot better since I stopped being a producer. I can have time to enjoy breathing and being, existing. But it should not be that the good, hardworking people are doing worse effectively. Because if you're slowly damaging and destroying your body working a job, and somebody else is getting by just perfectly fine, not doing fuck all shit, then what's actually good is wrong. And that's, you can say, well, there's right. No, no, no. What works is what's right. What's getting better results is what's right. And if you come out at the end of life and you're going to have a broken back or a fucked up body, I mean, it could be argued poverty when you have so much money and food and junk food and crap, like they die early because of the excess. But still, the idea that, someone who's actually quote unquote poor is doing better than someone that's working class, that should make you re-question if we're really actually helping these people out of poverty, or if we're just making a whole new line of existence. But this is part 2 of my Questions of Poverty series, and it's Freedom Phil. Just my observations of what I've seen. Anyways, like and subscribe. Y'all have a great day. Have fun with life. Enjoy it. Take it easy.